I went to the doctor for just a routine checkup, and it was like I was severely anemic. And the doctor was shocked that I didn't know or feel anything. And I just said, well, I'm always burning the candle at both ends. Of course I'm tired. Why wouldn't I be tired? I also was having really bad tension headaches to the point that I actually ended up addicted to Tylenol with codeine. And that's a whole other story on its own. But this is when I found food as medicine because I decided to stop searching for what else I could do and start looking after me. And that's where my energy came back online. That's where I changed the trajectory of my health and I found my passion.
Welcome to The Change Effect, the podcast that helps you turn life transitions into powerful new beginnings. One story, one shift, one breakthrough at a time. I'm your host, Noelle Van, an author, leadership coach, and change strategist who spent years in corporate America helping innovators and leaders break through barriers to create success on their own terms. I now work with women to step into change to create a life they love. Whether you're putting yourself at the center of your own story, redefining success, or making a power pivot in your life, career, or business, you're in the right place. Each week, we dive into conversations with trailblazers, changemakers, and everyday women experiencing the ripple effects that come from overcoming the fear and doing it anyway, providing actionable steps, practical strategies, and a whole lot of fun along the way. So if you're ready to step up and become unstoppable, buckle up and let's get started. There's a moment when your body starts negotiating with the life you've built. The energy dips, the tension lingers, the push-through strategy stops working. So you double down because that's what high achievers do. And then you realize that outperforming is doing more damage than good, and simply pushing through is no longer the answer. My guest today knows this journey firsthand. Debbie Saidyfye spent over 3 decades in the corporate world as a high achiever, extremely driven, capable, and always willing to put in the hours to get it done. Before a series of deeply personal wake-up calls led her to completely reimagine her life and work. Like so many women, she wore resilience like a badge of honor and ignored the signals her body was sending. Exhaustion, stress, depletion. She kept going until going harder was no longer sustainable. That's when Debbie began studying food as medicine, and as she restored her own energy and clarity through nutrition, she discovered that true transformation was not just about what we eat, but about the nervous system patterns driving how we live. She became a certified raw food chef and started understanding something deeper, the connection between chronic stress, the nervous system, and the way so many high-performing women are unknowingly living in survival mode. Today, Debbie is known as the Nervous System Nutritionist. She helps high-achieving women who have lived under pressure and responsibility for years reconnect with their bodies, build safety from the roots up, and create lives that feel aligned rather than simply accomplished. Her journey from corporate executive to practitioner is rooted in one core belief. When we grow from the roots up, everything above ground begins to change. Debbie, it is wonderful to have you here with us today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Noelle, for inviting me. I'm really excited today.
Well, it's great to have you, and you have so much wisdom to share. And I always say this, we kind of want to start, I want you to start at your beginning, whatever feels most comfortable, just to give the listeners a little bit of an idea of who you are and how you got to this place.
Yeah. So I will say that you covered a little bit of it in the beautiful introduction that you did. I am a high achieving woman. As long as I can remember as a little girl, I wanted to have a career. I wanted to show everybody that I was strong, I was capable, and I could do it all. Nothing could hold me back. And so I did. And I remember early on in my career, my boss pulled me aside and said to me, Debbie, if you really want to have a successful career, you need to work at least 50 hours a week.
Ugh.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, at the time, wow, like I'm raising 4 girls too, but I thought, wow. And then I decided I'm a high achieving woman. I'm going to do better than 50 hours a week.
Oh, no.
I'm going to work 60 hours a week. And I did. Like for over 35 years, I worked at least 60 hours every week. Sometimes I worked as many as 80, but rarely did I go below 50. And my computer was like an attachment to me. I never went anywhere without it, even on vacation. And that's how I lived my life until I got to this point where my marriage started to crumble. I wasn't tending to my marriage at all. I was working my hours, looking after the career, looking after the kids, and there was no time left for anything else. And after we separated, and I had just this like brief moment to think about things a little bit after the dust settled, I realized I had no idea who I was. I was a mother, I was a worker. But if you would have asked me back then, Noelle, who is Debbie and what is Debbie passionate about?
You wouldn't
I had
know.
no idea. No idea who I was.
And I mean, just to stop there for a moment, because I think that's it's such a profound thing to say, but also to feel that way. And I think we've all been in places where we've had to kind of pause and think about our life and think about where we are and who we are in it. How did that feel? Did you know that that was a turning point in the moment, or was it like, how did that land for you?
Oh, it felt horrible. I felt so empty and disconnected. Here I am doing all this stuff, and yet I have no idea who I was. And I had set out on a journey to make some changes to my life. And when I started that journey, I wanted to maybe do some kind of an entrepreneurial venture. But every single time it kept leading back to the same thing. I had no passion. Like, to be in this room with, I don't know, 100 other people who are all excited about, whatever they're doing, whether it's coffee or teaching people something. I'm like, I don't want to do like I did pension work. Like I don't want to do retirement planning. That's not what I'm passionate about. And so every turn that I took looking for something other than just my corporate job took me to this place that I had no idea who I was and it's like to feel like you have no passion.
Yeah.
That's that's pretty devastating.
Yeah. Well, so this is post divorce.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you had a lengthy career. So you went on for how long until you made a choice to kind of make a shift?
That whole journey led me to one thing. Just sometimes the universe puts things in front of us at the right time. And a couple of the seminars that I went to, they had speakers who were speaking about health and not business. And I realized at one of these sessions that I was addicted to sugar. And I wanted to break that sugar addiction because my health was starting to decline now. Like I went to the doctor for just a routine checkup, and it was like I was severely anemic. And the doctor was shocked that I didn't know or feel anything. And I just said, well, I'm always burning the candle at both ends. Of course I'm tired. Why wouldn't I be tired? I also was having really bad tension headaches to the point that I actually ended up addicted to Tylenol with codeine. And that's a whole other story on its own. But this is when I found food as medicine because I decided to stop searching for what else I could do and start looking after me. And that's where my energy came back online. That's where I changed the trajectory of my health and I found my passion, which was amazing. So I stopped pushing through trying to find something and just sat back and decided I was going to work on me. And that's when the magic happened.
And I mean, you said food is medicine. What was the journey you went on to learn more about that?
Yeah. So I again, this documentary landed in my inbox after I realized I wanted to ditch sugar, and it was a reboot of sorts. And I ended up doing this juice reboot, but I didn't have a juicer, so I ate vegetables for 2 months solid. That's how I started.
Oh, just like steamed vegetables or
Yeah,
what does that mean?
steamed vegetables, like little stir fries,
Oh,
things
right.
like
Yep.
that, but just vegetables, a little bit of fruit, but mostly vegetables. And after the end of 2 months, I was off of my sugar, and I treated it like an addiction, so I never went back because I know what it's like. I tried to quit smoking, and I remember well, I did quit smoking, but I remember when I was in that first week and walking around a mall in my hometown, I gotta get a cigarette. And this other side, the criticizer was like, "Get that cigarette." And the other side, the little angelic champion sitting on the other shoulder said, "You've come this far. If you take that cigarette now, you've wasted the last 3 days of all the tough sitting with not having a cigarette." And I kind of fed into that, and I've never looked back. And going from a sugar addict today, I walked into a candy store and had to walk out because the smell of the sugar nauseated me. I'm
Really?
good, yeah, yeah,
Oh, I love
that
that.
was that was the change for me, and from there, I just kept going because I did this for 2 months. My energy came back online, I was feeling better,
Mhm.
and so that's when I decided to go plant-based, but through that reboot in that documentary's called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. What it
Oof.
told me is that we have the opportunity to change our health destiny by changing the food on our plate. And that's how I learned about food as medicine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Now when was this? How many years ago?
I have been plant-based for about 12 and a half years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Now can I ask what was your diet before that? I know you said you liked sugar, but were you a meat eater?
Oh, I was, what they call the standard American diet. Even though I'm in
Okay.
Canada, standard Western diet, really. I was busy with my kids, going here, there, and everywhere. So had a lot of processed foods, quick things that we could do. We probably had our fast food a couple of times a week, stopping
Mhm.
in at the drive-through on the way home from dance. My kids were dancers, so and those years, that was around the time when I was like the taxi driver going everywhere
Right,
with the
right.
kids, with my
Oh my god.
laptop in hand, by the way.
Right. Okay, but so let's go back to that. So back to your corporate gig, you're doing pension plans. What was your role?
So I was a relationship manager for corporate pension plans. So we did the administration for those plans. So I was the person that was in between the operations people on our side and the client. So I got it from both ends, and I was available to my clients whenever they needed me, and also to the operations team. So
Right, right.
laptop in hand, I was.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so then what sparked you to make the move, to make the change and leave corporate?
Well, I ended up taking the raw food chef course, and I learned so much. I started doing it to learn more for myself and what I wanted. What I learned, Noelle, through my changing to food as medicine and plant based, is that was this whole world of food that I had no idea even existed. And I kind of ended up again, just happened to see this ad for a raw food chef program that was kind of a residency. You went there and spent a couple of weeks learning all about raw food, and I thought, wow, this would be really great, just for me to learn more about food. And the timing never worked out. And of course, I was going to do this in Nicaragua at in November 2020. We all know what 2020 was like.
Yes. Oh my
So
gosh.
I ended up doing the program at home, which was great. When you do it at home, you get to make sure you have all the equipment and all the things
Right.
yourself. So I was all ready to go. But when I finished, my instructor offered an opportunity to work on starting a business. And that at that point, that was like, yeah, I want to do this. And my goal, that was 4 years ago, was to help 1,000,000 or more women to find the power of food as medicine and learn that we don't need to accept health challenges and, no energy and brain fog and digestive issues as being the way of our life, and that's part of aging, because it's not. I want to say that right very clearly. It really has a lot to do with our lifestyle.
Hmm. Well, so you go through this course, you're
Yeah.
still working
Yeah.
your day job. What was the turning point there? When did you decide that you're going to move into the business full time and away from your day job?
We had a series of internal changes within our company. And what was happening, and this started to happen, I think, for a lot of people as a result of the pandemic, is there was this big exodus, the great exodus. Nobody left their job for 2 years, and all of a sudden everybody was leaving their job. And what happened is the people who were left ended up being left holding the bag. A bunch of people left. We didn't replace all those people. And certainly in our world, it was very hard to replace senior people like myself.
Hmm.
And they ended up turning my role into a sales role. So going from a relationship person dealing with the client to being the person to sell to the client, I did that naturally as part of my job. But now that was the focus, was on selling, not on making sure that everything was good and happy, and,
Right.
we tended to whatever their needs were. So that when my role started to shift, I knew that there was a strong, strong nudge. I loved my career. I loved what I did. I learned a lot. I don't ever regret a minute of it, but it was now not fun anymore. And I
Right.
decided I just need to focus on the work that I want to do, bringing this message to women.
Well, now, so that must have been that's a leap, right? I mean, was that something, did you feel like that was something that you were ready for? Like, how did that take shape? Do you just one day said, I'm going to go in, I'm going to tell them I'm giving my 2 weeks? Or was it something that you gave yourself a little bit of a ramp up to get to a place where you could kind of jump off and do your own thing? Like, how did you prepare for that?
See, I'm I'm not very good at ramping up, Noelle. I'm not a ramp up kind of person. I'm more of a just I'm ready to make this change. I was working and doing this part time with a business coach. So number one is in my well, no, it's not even in my it has been biologically shown that if we want to have those kind of successes, we need to be, from a nervous system perspective, it's actually a biological imperative to be in co-regulation. And that means having those people on your team who can help you to make that journey. You cannot do the journey alone. It's actually biologically improved. Well, I didn't know that back then, but I hired a business coach and started doing things part time. And there just came a point when, the work was just not really, satisfying anymore. Things had changed so much. So, and I found myself just being sucked into the negativity at work, and I didn't want to be that person. I was never that person. So that's when I decided, but I did do some planning, and things worked out even better than I expected with that by doing some planning. So I decided I would wait and tell my boss that probably after our bonuses got paid in April, that I would went into my boss and to let her know that I wanted to retire at the end of June. And I'm going to tell you that that conversation was she basically turned totally. She just like was shocked. She did not expect me to come in and say I wanted to retire, because I had always been very, very keen on my work and my career. So the fact that I came in and said I wanted to retire, she says, "Can you give me some time?" and they asked me to stay till the end of the year. And I decided I would do that. And we came up with an exit plan for till
Nice.
the end of the year. Yeah. And it also involved tapering down from full time to part time towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that was, yeah, the plan.
So you brought up something really interesting, and that is the physiological effects and making sure that you said that your nervous system is co-regulated. Can you explain a little bit of that? Because I believe that to be true, having done it myself.
Yeah.
And I have my theories about why that is, because I think, I mean, my idea of that, at least in my life, is that if I'm in a state of dysregulation and I'm feeling, the anxiety, the fear, the anticipation, all of those things of, securing something or becoming successful very quickly, that type of thing, like putting your system on high alert is not a place of creation, right? It's not a place to create from. So maybe explain that a little bit, because I think it's really important to listeners, especially anybody that's interested in moving into that, knowing that that support is so important because of those things.
Our nervous system can run. So you said the stress side. So there is the side of our nervous system. If you think of a ladder, the top of the ladder is where we are feeling safe, calm, and connected with others. That is a space where you have creativity, joy. You are able to connect with other people. This is like, that's the goal. That's where you want to live, is in that space of calm and connection. That's number one. Then you move down to stress. And so this is that what most people affectionately know as a flight or fight or flight. And stress isn't necessarily bad, because we need stress to really get ourselves mobilized in a situation where there is a threat. And if you're in that stress mode for too long and your body can no longer sustain that, the next step is to move into shutdown, where you really got to preserve your energy. And our body, totally 100%, it's all about survival. Our body is working for us to survive. That's it. That's its job. And our nervous system is scanning, they say around four times a second for safety. And so when it recognizes that there is a threat, it takes us into that stress. And if we can't sustain that any longer, then we shut down. So that's the basics. But the dysregulation, where you said, is when I am safe, but I'm feeling stressed. That's what dysregulation is. And when you are in dysregulation or even in stress, you are in protection mode.
Hmm.
And when you're in protection, you cannot create. Your thinking brain, that prefrontal cortex where we actually can think and reason, goes offline because it takes a lot of energy. So the energy goes to fight or flight, into the extremities. But when we are in connection with others, not just in connection, I mean, I can be in connection with somebody who dysregulates me too, right?
Yeah.
You need to be in connection with somebody who is in a place of that calm state as well. Then you actually can get some of their energy and build your capacity. So the part you said, when you're doing something new and it's anxious, there is a point where where you're calm and you're in safety. And safety is really what we're familiar with. Maybe not safe from, it may not seem safe on the outside, but our bodies, what our body's familiar with. And when you do something new, you're stretching outside of that safety that you've built, or your nervous system's familiarity. And you can stretch it so much, but there comes a point where you take it from stretched to overwhelm. And
Right.
when you hit overwhelm, that's when you shut down. And working with somebody like a business coach helps you, or whatever, life coach, whatever it is that is going to help you to find that stretch a little further in the stretch so you don't end up in that overwhelm and shutdown. If they're a good person, that's what they're going to do for you. Is they're going to help you to build your capacity and also show you a way that works so that you can feel more that safety and security.
Well, and safety is such a big thing, I think, in any change that we make. I
Hmm.
think
Absolutely.
that's our perception of change as being in an unsafe place a lot of times. So I love what you say about the additional, like having I know personally, when I think about just going through the path that I've been on of leaving a corporate environment and moving into something completely new, you kind of have that misperception that, well, I'm just going to figure it out. Like, I'm just going to kind of know. And you have zero understanding of the ups and downs that it will take you on because you are experiencing new feelings, new challenges, new, muscles that you've never used before. And to have someone there that's not only a calm in the storm, but also someone that can be like, you know what? That's that's part of it. I mean, I know this from clients that I work with where it's if I can identify that for them, it helps to ease the stress a little, knowing, oh, this is actually like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Right now, I'm actually supposed to be worried about that, or I'm actually supposed to be freaking out because this is something I've never done before. But that's all it is. And then naming what that is, it's an interesting, I just think there's so little said about that. And then we jump into the game and we're like, whoa, I'm in this whole spin cycle. And you don't recognize like how to be guided through that in the right way. And I
Yeah.
love also the nutrition aspect of it. So going back to that, um, knowing that it's a physiological as well as a mental game, what are the kinds of things that you did when you first started? I know that you said you cut out sugar, which I know
Mhm.
is a great answer to a lot of things, being a sugar addict myself. And how wonderful you do feel when you're off of it, because that
Mhm.
is a real thing. How did you start to see that in your life? So you left the corporate world. You talk about doing cooking classes, which I love. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that too. But I do want to just ask you, just when you were first on this new diet, you're out of this construct you've been in for many, many years. What was next for you? How did you dive in even
Well,
deeper?
oh my gosh, that's where the nervous system stuff started to come in. I was introduced to it actually by my business coach. And when I started, I said that the nutrition is the foundation of our health. That was what I said. And when I learned about the nervous system, I think, wow, I got to make some changes to what I'm saying because if your nervous system is dysregulated, you're bringing on all of that that chronic stress brings on chronic pain. For women who are in chronic pain and have no idea why, nobody can give them an answer. It's likely because their nervous system is dysregulated.
Mm.
That's all. Dysregulation brings on inflammation, it brings on those things, and that brings on the chronic pain and other diseases, and I'm like, "Well, how am I supposed to reconcile that with the food is medicine?" But it works because what I know now is that nervous system is like the ground that you put the foundation on. If you put that foundation on rocky ground or on quicksand, that foundation isn't going to stand up. So, food as medicine is the quickest way to see results. But there's so many, and this was the other thing as I was working, is there were so many women saying, Debbie, I'm eating all the things I should be eating, and yet I'm not feeling great. At first, I was like, maybe they just think that they're eating the right things, but they really aren't. And then when I found the nervous system work, and the real deep nervous system work, not just the tools to like breathing deep breathing and meditation and other things can help you to regulate yourself and bring you to that calm temporarily. We're talking about the deep work that helps you to expand your capacity and build a more resilient nervous system, not just in the moment, but for your lifetime. That's when I realized that that's the key. And so even though the food is important, and I eat mostly whole food, plant-based, not gonna lie, I'm not perfect in what I eat,
Mhm.
but that's okay. We're not here to be perfect. It's okay to have things. But as I went into the plant-based world, I learned other things became important because I learned that, there's an ethical side to it, and there's also the environmental side. So it's part of who I am. But when I talk about nutrition now, I start with basics. And the basics are about giving your body food within a rhythm so it knows the food is coming, not starving yourself, which I did for many, many years. I starved myself all day because I was busy working. I didn't need to eat. I felt like, oh, I'm not hungry. But then I would come home at night and eat the house, like eat everything in the house and be obsessed with food. But if you can give yourself a rhythm and give your body that sense of safety, that's when you're going to want to eat all the good foods. When
Mhm.
you're in that dysregulated state, you either don't want to eat at all or you want to eat all those comfort foods that we all know what we should eat and what we shouldn't eat. I don't think that there's any secret about that. But working on the nervous system is how you can actually get to that point where you want to eat those things and you're not forcing yourself.
Okay, so going back to the the deeper work there. When you talk
Yeah.
about deeper nervous system work, because I think about when I think of breath work, I think of meditation, I
Yeah.
think of yoga, all those kinds of movement,
Yeah.
exercise, that type of thing. What is could you give us an example of what the deeper work looks like?
Well, the first thing is paying more attention to your body and what your body needs on a regular basis, like not just once in a while, but also there's different tools that we have to help build the resilience and to build your capacity. So all of those things are great in the right thing, in the right time and place as tools to bring us into regulation. But when you take them away, you can go slip back into that dysregulated state. So the tools are really about, I mean, we do a whole bunch of things with mapping your nervous system so you can start to recognize, oh, I'm, I really feel like having a hamburger right now. So what does that say? Well, maybe I should pay attention and maybe my body, I know when I want to have a hamburger, what that means for my body, which probably is that I'm tired. I don't have a lot of energy. And so my body's saying, I just want quick energy. So for those that are hooked on sugar, which I was, a lot of times it's your body is craving that for the quick energy because it needs that energy or it wants to store that energy, kind of hoard it because it's missing something somewhere along the way. And it all comes down to our survival. Our body is doing what it needs, and those cravings come from it giving us signals so we survive. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, I was going to say, so is it more about listening to your body and being able to interpret what certain
Yes.
signals
Yeah.
are giving you? So you're
Yeah.
kind of more preventative, getting ahead of it versus responding to it or reacting. Because when I think of
Yes.
my nervous system, and I know now much more than I knew 10 years ago what dysregulation feels like. I mean,
Yeah.
I would venture to say 10 years ago, I was much more dissociated with my body too. So the more that you become in touch with your body, understanding what your body is telling you. I think of somatic work,
Mhm.
when you think of like somatic therapy and things like that, where it's because there's a lot that we hold in our body too, right? So there's a lot of things that we might be holding on to from the past that comes up as stress or anxiety. Those are some of the areas that I think it's not so much always just what's in front of you. You could be having a reaction to something that's a button that's just been pushed about something in your past too. So I think there's so many layers to it.
There
But
are.
yeah. But so you're saying just the coupling of the nutrition with because you're putting your body in more of a biologically balanced state with the nutrition and then having a better understanding of what those other things are that are happening to your nervous system can help you get ahead of it. Is
Yes,
that
yes.
accurate? Okay.
And also, we do need to be co-regulating with somebody who is in that safe place, and that's the quickest way to get into a state of that calm regulation is being co-regulating with someone. If you are feeling like you don't want to get out of bed and you're feeling depressed, and you start to see the patterns. And when you map your own nervous system, everybody's nervous system is different. If you map yours and I map mine, well, I have my map, yours will be totally different than mine. There will be some things that'll be very similar. There's kind of some universal patterns, but there's going to be things. For example, maybe I love water. So, water, a happy place for me is around the water. Maybe for you, you had something happen, some kind of trauma, and water puts you into a stress state. It's all going to be depend on we all are different, and that's where those those prior things like our experiences, the traumas that might have happened to us are all there. And I want to go back to what you said about, the things are stored in our body. Absolutely. That is a huge thing. If we don't give our body the opportunity to release them, we don't need to, doing the nervous system work, you don't need to go and relive all of your traumas, but you need to have a way to release them from your body because they are stored in our body and our cells. So just a simple example. As a kid, I remember this: stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. I remember that many, many times my parents would say that. And, they learned that from their parents. I'm not, nothing against my parents. I'm sure I said it to my kids many times too. But the idea of allowing us to release that emotion is really important because if we can't release it, and when a child is having a tantrum, everybody wants to coddle them and get them to stop. Letting them finish and release that energy is the healthiest thing that you can do for them so that they aren't storing it in their body.
Well, what is it that they have the Body Keeps the Score? I think
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that book, where they talk about animals and how animals go through a full cycle.
Yeah.
They have the ability to do that every time. So then they just start back at square one. But with us, that cycle gets interrupted.
Yeah,
And then it
exactly.
sits and it sits. But can I just to go back to the mapping one more time? So the
Yes.
map, is it a literal map that you start to create?
Yes.
Where it's like, when this happens, is what my body feels like. Or when this happens, like, how does that play out?
It helps you to recognize you can map all sorts of things. Like I can map how my body reacts and how I react to different nervous system states, how my reaction to food and how I perceive food and what I'm, like what kind of foods I want to eat and what my habits around food are depending on my nervous system state. And so it's really about learning to pay attention. It's
Hmm.
this thing called notice and name. It's actually very easy, but I spent so many years living from the neck up, and everything was about the feeling and the intellectual piece. I did not spend any time paying attention to how my body felt and what my body needed. So you start doing that. I never, this morning, it's Monday morning, I get up and my normal thing would just be, whether I'm feeling it or not, just get up and get going and power through. That's how I live my life. But this morning, I thought, my body feels like just staying in bed for another 10 minutes and snuggling in the covers. So I did. And if, in the middle of the day, if I'm kind of check in with my body and it's feeling a bit, what does my body need? And sometimes that's just like, I need a break right now. Let me just go take a break. And it's not anything really difficult to do, but it's just having the intention to take the time out to notice what our body needs and no judgment. We don't need to judge. Just do it and then ask your body, what would you like? It's amazing how that changes your trajectory. I've been working with women who are also starting their business, and I am pairing it with work on the nervous system has just like it's been incredible to see the change, and they've been able to grow and push through things that would hold them back where they would normally freeze. And
I
then
love that.
yeah, because what happens, we typically, if you're thinking intellectually about it, you always think, what's wrong with me? Why can't procrastination? I'm so good at that. I could do that all day long. I think a lot of us procrastinate on things and then beat myself up. What's wrong with me? Why didn't I do it? There must be something, that I'm not good enough, whatever. But it's not. It's your nervous system. At the very core of it is your nervous system. There's a reason why it's protecting you from something.
Right. And sometimes it's just protecting you from something new and different, right? That you may not be used to.
Yeah,
And it's not
exactly,
big and bad and
exactly,
scary.
exactly.
But what I think is so interesting about that too is just going back to that, taking the moment and pausing or thinking about how you're feeling. I can remember in my life, and I don't know if other people can relate to this, but especially as women, when we think about, taking that extra time. I mean, you just described it, and when you would be at work, you'd be like, "Well, I don't need to eat." It's almost there's almost something about abandoning ourselves at times in sort of with the feeling that we're being, we're being very we're performing at a high level, or we are being, we're getting a lot done. It's all that stuff that we think of like as the do, go, 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 that almost thinking about yourself in that way feels like, well, I mean, I'm not gonna pause and do that. It's like telling somebody about, like, self-care, which I know is such a, overused term, right? But take care of yourself first, and people, especially women, that's not their go-to place. Their go-to place is not, "How am I feeling about that?" when they've got 50,000 other things to do during the day. So, and granted, a lot of this is raising children and doing things that are very important. So it's not to say that that's a bad thing, but it's almost like, take a look at that. And how does that feel when you pause? And is that something that you feel guilty about doing? And why is that? Those are some things that I think are really important to look at too, because the more that you give yourself the grace to do it and then do it again and then do it again, it becomes more of a habit, and you start to become more aware. And then the judgment starts to kind of retreat a little bit. And I think it affects the other things along the way. I don't know. That's just how I've
Absolutely,
experienced it.
100%. Exactly what you said is exactly. You're right, spot on with that because I mean, my boss actually, one of my bosses actually said to me, "Debbie, you're no good to anyone if you're dead." And he meant it. He meant it. And I laughed it off. Nobody was going to tell me that I'm strong. I can do this all. So this is the thing is like, how do we actually get past that? Because also, I have somebody in my life who does take those pauses and does make sure her priority is herself. And what do we think about a woman who puts her priority on herself first? Not that she's like amazing, that, oh, like she's like selfish.
Yeah.
That's what we
No,
think,
that
right?
is the way that at least that's the way that we've been sort of brought up to feel. But
Yeah.
I totally believe that. I want to talk just a little bit about where you are now. What's coming up next for you? Do you have anything
Oh,
coming up?
yeah. So this year, again, last year I did a lot of events and I interviewed a lot of speakers and I had changed my vocation and I was working on my passion, but I hadn't changed who I was on the outside. So I was still hustling. So this year, I am working on protecting my energy more and being more intentional about what I do. But I have entered the realm of keynote speaking now, which is
Nice.
so exciting. I just finished a weekend learning all about the International Speaker Association guidelines, and I'm going
Nice.
to be accredited very soon. But I'm also
Nice.
I'm excited, and I'm also working on my book. I started my book 3 years ago, and I've totally changed now because I found the nervous system. And so this book is launching in April,
Nice.
which
What's
is
the
great.
title? What's the book
It
title?
is Growing from the Roots Up, The Hidden Cost of Success for High Achieving Women.
Love it. Okay, when is it coming? You said April?
April. It's coming out
Okay.
in April.
I'm
So
keeping my eye open. We are going to be sharing all of Debbie's links in the show notes. And Debbie, you also do something that I just want to make sure you tell the listeners, that you have a cooking class.
yes.
So tell us quickly about that, because I want to make sure that we let people know that that's out there.
Yes. So I do whole food, plant-based cooking, gluten-free on Fridays at noon Eastern time on Zoom. I just allow people to come join me in my kitchen as I prepare something. I keep it simple and something that anybody can do because, women are busy and don't have a lot of time to be doing all these fancy things. So just some nourishing food. And Noelle, for your sugar, I have the times when I spend time making desserts and treats that are actually good for you
I love
and
it.
nourishing your body, and you still get that sweet in you. So
Okay.
yes.
Okay. I'm going to stay tuned. Are those on certain days you're saying, or is it
So
like you have?
it depends. I've been like right now we're doing a lot of stews and soups and things for
Oh, nice for
winter.
winter. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
but
sense.
and all of my classes are on my YouTube channel, which you're going to share with the audience. So if
Nice.
anybody wants, they can subscribe and pay attention, and we send out reminders as well so if people want to join in live.
Nice, Debbie. That's awesome. I love that you do that. Well, it has been such a pleasure having you with us, Debbie, and just sharing what you're doing and your journey to get there, because I know you're still on the path, but it's so great to hear. I cannot wait for your book to come out, and just thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure to be here. Thanks, Noelle.
Of course. That's it for now. Until next time. Thank you for listening to The Change Effect. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review if you enjoyed this episode, so more women like you can find us and take their next step toward creating a life they love.